Yahoo Sports columnist specializes, well, I think he specializes in baseball. We're going to talk to him about baseball mostly. Wrote a couple of great columns the last 2 days, which is no surprise. He does that all the time. Please welcome Jeff Passan. What's up, buddy?
How are you, fellas?
Great.
So, Jeff, let's talk Cabrera versus A-Rod. You wrote a great article about this. Do you think it overshadows Cabrera? All this A-Rod nonsense. People should be on the positive side talking about, here's a guy, Triple Crown winner, and, contention for it again. I mean, how rare is that? And no, everyone's talking A-Rod.
Yeah, everyone's talking A-Rod because, A-Rod's, it's fascinating. It's a complete train wreck. It's a shady lawyer, and it's Major League Baseball getting into bed with a drug dealer who tried to pawn it off like he was a doctor, and it's a guy who's been lying for years about the drugs he's been using and has purple lips, which is kind of weird. And it's the New York Yankees, threatening to countersue the suit that he might file. I mean, it's like a daytime soap opera that has come to life in the sports world. And it's hilarious, and it's pathetic, and it's grown men getting into these obnoxious fights over millions of dollars that, everybody else out there is like, well, what is this? How has it gotten to this point? And all the while, Miguel Cabrera is just hitting 360 with 40 home runs and 120 RBIs, and having one of the greatest offensive seasons ever in a depressed run-scoring environment. So that's what we should be focusing on. But look, there's a reason that TMZ exists.
At a time also when Detroit desperately as a city needs good news. Like here's a sports hero for Detroit that just claimed bankruptcy. God, it would be great to see him on the cover of every national magazine and the front story of the ESPN, possibly going after a second Triple Crown in a row, which I don't think has ever been done, even back in the 1911s. And instead it's all A-Rod. It sucks. Ryan Braun, another shady character. What are your thoughts on Ryan Braun?
Oh, well, look, Ryan Braun went around telling people around baseball that the guy who collected his urine sample was an anti-Semite and a Cubs fan. And that's
nice to smear a guy for life.
Yeah, exactly. And
what's worse, by the way, anti-Semite or Cubs fan, do you think?
Speaking as a Jew, I'd say an anti-Semite. But speaking as a baseball fan, that's a tough call.
I hear you.
You know the funniest part about it? Ryan Braun's not even Jewish.
That's what I mean. Right.
His dad is Jewish, but he wasn't raised in the religion.
Is it true?
Said, right?
Ryan Braun actually has a painting of Hitler in a Cubs and an Ernie Banks jersey.
You know what? That's how desperate we are as Jews. If somebody has a Jewish name, a Jewish dad, looks Jewish, might sound Jewish, we immediately claim him as one of our own.
Well, what is he, German?
Of course we go for that.
I think he's German, right?
I think his dad's actually from Israel.
Yeah, his dad's Jewish.
Okay, but he wasn't raised Jewish.
But Judaism is matrilineal, so it goes through the mom's side.
Right. What's the mother?
For religion
Mother is
purposes.
definitely not Jewish. I married a non-Jew too, but we're raising our kids Jewish.
Oh, okay.
And so to me, Jew is pretty much what you're raised. He was not raised Jewish, though.
Okay.
I mean, if I go and talk with an Orthodox rabbi, he'd probably throw my kids into like the ocean and say they're not Jews. But
that would be rude.
That would be horrible, wouldn't it?
Well, now wait a minute. So you think Ryan Braun concocts this thing where he goes, we're going to call this guy a Brewer hater because he's a Cub fan and a Jew hater. I mean, that is like really a disgusting, awful thing to call somebody.
Yeah.
And especially nowadays, can the guy sue him at this point?
I think he could. I've gotten the sense, though, Dino Lorenzi is the man's name, and I've gotten the sense that he just wants to get past this and doesn't want to prolong it anymore. I mean, if he files a defamation suit, then this is something that's going to linger on in the courts and is going to cost him money. And Ryan Braun, as we know, as we saw in his first arbitration case with a guy named David Cornwell, who's now representing Alex Rodriguez. Ryan Braun has $100 million to hire the best lawyers possible. So, even though there's probably a good case to be made there, I don't get the sense that it's one that Dino Lorenzi wants to make.
Dino Lorenzi, what's his history before that? I know that the guys who did our urine samples were like former FBI guys. They were just doing it because
former SS agents.
No,
you will give me the urine.
They were former FBI guys and stuff who were mostly retired, but just wanted to stay active doing something. What was his background?
He's still like an athletic trainer and rehab coordinator.
Right.
He was in the sports field, and it was a natural extension of that. And, he was. Look, it's not the most glamorous job in the world to go and grab a vial of a guy's piss.
Yeah, he could probably take it or leave it, right?
But you get to be around baseball and you get to meet interesting people. And I know that there are some drug testers out there who have good relationships with guys because they see them often.
Right.
And of the people with whom I've spoken, they never had any beef with Dino Lorenzi. There was nothing wrong with him. They found him to be a perfectly good and agreeable guy. And
well, that's the thing. When you're peeing for a guy all the time, and it's always the same guy, you're chummy. It's a regular thing. It's part of the business. It's what you do. There's no reason you should have any animosity towards the guy.
And ultimately, I think once Ryan Braun and his lawyers realized the best way to win the case, which they did ultimately, was through the chain of custody argument. The fact that Dino Lorenzi didn't immediately send it out, and he was following protocol. Baseball's protocol was just screwed up. And it's something that they've changed since then, but because he didn't send it out immediately and kept it in a temperature-controlled environment in his basement, and the sample was perfectly fine once it made it to the lab in Montreal a couple days later.
Yeah.
All that notwithstanding, the chain of custody was broken, and you know what? Ryan Braun deserved to win that case.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, listen, I don't know. It's such a disgusting time for Major League Baseball. I think on all levels. I think people's true colors are being shown. They're not to be good people, these supposed heroes, and forget about the cheating aspect. I think on some level cheating's gone on forever, but it's the way they're doing it. They're not thieves with honor. You know what I mean? It's just they're disgusting.
Yeah, it's gotten ugly, and I think the worst part of it is not the fact that these guys most of the time are doing this to try and get back from injuries or to try and keep healthy in a really long, arduous year. I think it's the fact that they are part of a union that agreed to these regulations, and they're essentially spitting at them to the detriment of other players, and not just to the detriment of the guys whose jobs are being taken away. I don't think if Ryan Braun's not on performance-enhancing drugs, some guy from the minor leagues is going to be taking his job. I mean, that's not how it works, right? Ryan Braun is remarkably talented, and whether he's on something or not, he's going to be a big leaguer. To me, it's the other guys who have to answer the questions for him, and the other guys who have to deal with the repercussions, and who had to hear the lies. And that to me is the collateral damage, and the fact that Major League Baseball for more than a dozen years now has just been eating the same crap over and over and over again. And but Bud Selig's vigilance on the subject actually I think has been the worst thing possible for the sport because look, I don't know that it's obvious, but Von Miller got suspended for 6 games today, and you didn't hear a word from Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell couldn't give a damn. You know what Roger Goodell cares about? The fact that all of his players' brains are getting scrambled and they're offing themselves at 50 years old because football is a game that gives you, concussions and screws your head up.
Shooting themselves, shooting themselves or somebody else.
Shooting themselves in the chest, too, so their brain can be studied.
Right, or shooting somebody else first.
And so the moral outrage over performance-enhancing drugs, whether it's in baseball, football, basketball, or hockey, I think sort of pales in comparison to the fact that there's a game being played out there that's remarkably dangerous to guys, and it's frightening to see the number who end up in terrible shape after even short careers.
Hey, Jeff, going back to that Von Miller thing, Are there any whispers? We still don't know why he's being suspended for 6 games. We don't know the specifics.
I think I heard on the radio maybe that it was for a diluted urine sample. Does that sound right?
Well, I don't think we got that definitively, right?
I mean, I don't know if that's the case.
I heard something like that too.
I know, like back in college, like when I had an internship one time, and I'd smoked a little weed a little bit beforehand, you got to drink as much water as you possibly can to dilute the thing out.
Right.
I don't know if that's what Von Miller was doing, or...
Well, we don't know that for a fact. I've heard whispers, too, that it could be linked to biogenesis. Have you heard anything along those lines?
Ooh. No, I haven't heard anything like that. I sure hope it's not.
Well, it's not. We know absolutely that it's not for a positive test. And we assume that he was already in the program, meaning that he had tested positive already last year for something in the street drugs, in the drugs of abuse category.
Yeah, and then, you know what? Look, if 75% of professional athletes across sports aren't smoking weed at any given time, it would absolutely shock me.
Oh, I know.
I mean, especially if you live in Denver.
Yeah, you're going to want to smoke a little Mother Earth. You're in Colorado.
Well, the fact that he was so vehement in denying that he smoked.
I know, that's where they run into a problem. The buzzsaw, the hypocrite stuff, the lying, you know, and it's... what about the way that, going back to the A-Rod situation, what about the way Matt Lauer treated Tacopina on the air? Do you think that's a good way to go in journalism, to set a precedent, or do people hate A-Rod enough they'll deal with shady stuff like that one time?
I think that was awesome.
Yeah. A lot of people do because it's A-Rod.
I mean, look, Tacopina has spent a career being a massive blowhard. He's very good at what he does, but he's usually the guy who uses words and evidence to get over on other people. To see, like, bald Matt Lauer just go in there and shove that document in his face and be like, what you got, Tacopina? And Tacopina start fumbling over his words like that.
I know what to say,
Was I mean, if you go back and, like, listen to what he said, they were just incomplete sentences strung together. That made no sense.
Did it sound, when he wasn't making any sense, did it sound kind of like this?
I'm getting tired of these little jerks in it, and I'm tired of crapping all over the place and picking up pee all day, and it's annoying me.
What about this?
And how Hollywood loves when you're in a meeting. Oh, what's it like? Oh no, it's not like my mother. You know, whatever. I know.
Right? I mean,
that's about right.
That's how it sounded.
And that's what A-Rod's paying $2,000 an hour.
Exactly. Is that what it is? 2 G's an hour? Is that like?
No, I have no idea. I don't know what lawyers.
It could be. It could be. Unbelievable. Well, how do you think the A-Rod thing ends? Give us your humble opinion.
Well, on one hand, Major League Baseball seems to have a treasure trove of evidence linking him to performance-enhancing drugs, and if that is in fact the case and that plays out in front of an arbitrator, you would think that the decision ultimately is going to be the arbitrator's whether to suspend him for one-time use, since this is really the first time they've tried to get him under the program, or if he would take all 3 of those years from 2009 to 11 and possibly 12 that he allegedly was using as separate instances, and that would somehow add up to 211 games. On the other hand, if Anthony Bosch does not testify in this arbitration hearing, and chances are at this point that he might not, because the federal government apparently is looking into him giving performance-enhancing drugs teenagers, and all of a sudden, you know, they didn't care about pro athletes, but when you're giving them out to kids, suddenly Anthony Bosch is in the crosshairs of the government. If he's worried that the government's going to be able to subpoena and take whatever testimony he gives or whatever deposition he gives in that arbitration hearing, he might not say anything, and you wonder the strength of Major League Baseball's case without Tony Bosch there.
Yeah. No, well, interesting. I mean, clearly they're putting a lot into Bosch and his credibility in this particular situation. So we'll see what happens. Well, look, we really appreciate the time, Jeff, as this story comes more and more to fruition and moves along. We'd love to have you back on, man.
I'm looking forward to it, fellas. Great talking.
Jeff Passan from Yahoo Sports. He's a columnist, wrote a couple of great articles the last couple of days about the whole situation. Again, Ryan Braun and A-Rod are two figures in this who are not sentimental characters, people not loving them. And it looks like it's for good reason. So it continues. It continues every day, but it's important in this whole thing to remember that in the midst of this, in Detroit, in the heart of hell-ridden Detroit, the greatest offensive player, supposedly without drugs, is emerging in the last 20 years in Miguel Cabrera. Let's just remember what this guy's doing. Triple Crown last year, having an even better year this year. Could hit 360. Let's not forget that because it deserves repeating and a lot of attention. All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. The great Ala Abdelnaby will talk everything with us. That's how he rolls. The Artie Lange Show.